Hello, replayers. Appreciate you coming by, checking things out here. I did a scope a little earlier on applying, hi Michael, on applying decals and my process and what I use and what I do. And I wanted to get a little more up close and personal to show off what the process is because it can get really detail oriented. Hi Karen, how are you? I have one that I applied about an hour ago before lunch, and I wanted to show how it looks after it's dried a little bit. This is the dandelion puff that I took a photograph of with the help of my husband, that my daughter picked up out of the yard, the front yard. And it is, I've got two different images of it. I have the one with kind of this, kind of has a little bit of a cone head. And then I've got one that's more of a, it's kind of a blown away looking little guy. Looks like the little wish puff parts coming off there. And it is just one of the two primary images that I use because they're related to my family and my home. Millie and I have a lot of fun applying pots and getting things done. So here's the other image, or one of the dill images that I use. This is the dill that I grew in my herb garden. Let's see, and this was about 2014, and I took pictures of that and then turn them into these digital images, which I then print onto this paper. This is Bell decal paper, and they are all blocked out, and I'm going to do a scope, I promise, on the computer stuff. I just need to work on that setup just a little bit more. I want to show you some of the information that you need to know to help with the Photoshop part of that, and I'm still working on making that something that's easy to read. Yeah, the computer paper, Karen, and the process on, I use Photoshop. There's a couple other, there's a free one out there called GIMP that I've used that works pretty good. So I am going to definitely do that. I just need to work on the setup a little bit more. And so anyway, I just wanted to show you guys, this is the one, let's see, this is the one I was working on in the last scope. And I just wanted to show how those dandelions look now that they've dried a little bit. This guy, I'm going to cut that off here because he just doesn't need to go quite that far. But that is, I do post links. There's a link on my Facebook page, which is at ZephyrValley Ceramics, and I also post links to the Catch Me that I use on my website, which is ZephyrValleyPottery.com. I have a blog that I'm running there to catch all my scopes and to kind of, I tend to lose my train of thought, so I also try and catch up on my train of thought and post any additional informational pictures there as well. So I just started that. There's just a few posts there. So in any case, this kind of gives you a sense of what that first one is that I did earlier this morning, now that it's finished. So that's just dry. Oh, let's see, I did kind of a cutie little dandelions along the bottom on this one. So the neat thing about the photography, and I'm sorry I just missed what was there. Thank you. Boy, see what I said about losing my train of thought? There I go. Chugging out of the station. These pots will turn into, hang on just a second, those decals I mean. Okay, so these decals will end up looking like this when they're fired. So that's the same image, and it is fired to, this one I fired to just about cone 01 or cone 1. I think now that I've tested the kiln a little bit, I think it's firing a little hot, so I'm going to tell it to fire to 01. The clay is M340. It's Plainsman M340. And after the first firing, this is pretty much what the glaze looks like. The glaze is alabaster satin from Coyote on the inside and as the first layer on the outside. And then the next layer over the top of that is the Strontium Crystal Magic Cool recipe that Stephen Hill was so kind to share. I put it on the outside instead of underneath, which is his usual recommendation. For me, it seems to give, with that mix with the alabaster, it gives kind of this nice antique look when it's finished, when I do that third firing with the decal. Also, the clay body brings forth some of these speckles, which helps also give it kind of that antique vintage feel, which I really like. So this is my goal with this, and this is a second. You can see it kind of has a funky lip there. Is to kind of reference the Irish linen that my decal. No, not always. I've actually done it both ways. I've tried to apply the decal to bisque and then glaze over the top of that. It definitely has its own different effect. For this particular effect, it's 3 firings, so that's bisque, glaze, and then decal. I have seen Justin Rothshank does multiple firings. He also uses commercial decals. These are iron laser decals, so they fire at a different temperature than the commercial decals. These fire hotter. Commercial decals generally fire cooler. They're usually in the cone 017 or 019 range. These I can fire clear up to cone 6. However, they do get really, really faded at that point. It just depends on how antique I want it to look and how burned out I want it to look. It can be really interesting adding layers and doing the different levels of heat. The more you fire it, the more faded it gets. So I could burn these out and then do another decal firing over the top of that, and that would give it multiple layers and give it a different look entirely. So yeah, so that is that. So let's see, clay is the M340, it's Plainsman. I fire typically to cone 6. This is what that glaze looks like at cone 6. And that's actually a pretty hard 6. And you can see it's got some really fun crystal development at the bottom there. So, and it's different every time, of course. So consistency is not really something I have to worry about too much. It's just something that is in the same family. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So anyway, I'll show again. I've got a couple of tools here that I use. I've got a sponge. This was another tip I picked up from the Justin Rothshank video. These Trader Joe sponges, which come super compressed, and then you put them in water and they expand, and thank goodness you can order that stuff online. And then the red rib, the magical red rib. I am also using this rubber tipped rib. No, not generally. I fire that first glaze firing to make sure it's vitrified, so I don't even have to worry about it after that. Once it's vitrified, it's done. And this vitrifies at cone 6 to about 3%, between 2 and 3%. So, and I use these in my own house, in my own home. You can also, with the iron decals, you can put them on the inside of pots and still use the pots. They still can be food safe, again, as long as your glaze is food safe and your clay hasn't done anything weird. But because it's iron and it melts directly into the glaze surface, that doesn't seem to be an issue. So I'm going to go ahead and apply another one of these decals here. I like to run the decal all the way to the bottom, and I should do this upside down because this is how I normally do it. And I push that little guy right into the edge of the foot there. Now the thing that happens pretty regularly is these will rip. They're pretty delicate, and they rip. But the cool thing is that they layer, and you can fire multiple decals on top of each other in one firing. Because of that, making repairs is pretty easy. I can use another decal if I need to, or I can just patch it together. And that happens. Just have to, for me, it's that the finished look be consistent and cohesive, and also as clean as possible, because I don't want bubbles. I want the burnout process to be with the fire and in the kiln, and I do fire in a Scut 1227. It's got a single thermal couple. I wish it had more, but it's a cone 8 kiln, which actually really doesn't want to fire to cone 8 that much, but it works pretty good for cone 6. And so what I'm going to show you here is I've got some, let's see if I can make these show up on the camera here. Well, I've got a wrinkle right here, a bubble, and I've got some bubbles over here as well. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some relief cuts right onto the pot, right through the decal. And because this decal is of a dandelion puff, it's a little bit of a cheat because I can layer that right over the top of itself. Let's see, can you see that one right there? Yeah. That guy just needs to have a little layering going on. Now I hold on to the decal so it doesn't pull or tear. Every time I forget to do that, it will pull or tear. And so I'm taking that air out of there and laying that guy right down on top. Sometimes I need to get that wet again because he's getting pretty dry already. Dry Montana air. I'm telling you what, the wind's blowing like 30 miles an hour outside right now. I've got the humidifier on in the studio here so I could talk to you guys. It was getting so dry. Okay, so see, I don't know. See how nice and flat that is now? Oh, that's good light right there. See how nice and flat that is? So, looks like I got another little bubble up there, but sponge seems to be doing its job. So now the other thing I want to do is I'm going to take this tool, this guy again, and just get up in here and rub. Yeah, see, I want to be sure that is really, really adhered to the surface because otherwise it'll burn off and not show up in the final product. Oop, all right, well, it's sticking more to the rib than it is to the pot, so let's get a little water on there. I think one of the things that we think of when we're doing the periscopes is everything's got to be perfect. At least that's my feeling. I want everything to be perfect for you guys. And it just never is. And then I realized that, you know what, I should show you how I fix the errors because they happen. Okay. So sometimes what happens is you'll get it perfectly adhered down and then the little bubble will show up anyway. I always recommend to wait a day before you fire these bad boys because sometimes bubbles will show up the next day, and then you can go in with your X-Acto knife or you can go in with your needle tool, that one's dirty, and pop those holes and add a little more water and lay that back down. So what do you guys think? Have any questions so far? Get that cut, give some relief there. There's my sponge, just hidden behind the phone there. All right, sorry I don't have any music going on today. I was going to turn on the iPod and it just had no juice, and of course I can't locate my charger because I apparently took it with me somewhere and I just never brought it home. So now I'm going to decide, do I want to bring in a small one? I like to do things in odd numbers. I think the small one's nice. The other option's to do one of the big ones. That kind of makes it look like he's more forward in the frame. I don't know. What do you think? I like them both. Layer him over the top of these two. Well, I don't know. Let's see what they look like. Let's get them wet. So I'm taking the decal, putting it in the water. Let that soak for a minute. The water's kind of room temperature now, so it's a little bit, it'll take it a minute. So I'll put this other decal on this other bowl. It's been soaking in here for a while. See, it's all folded. This happens. And there's gum on the paper, and there's gum on the decal, the plastic part. So I have two different buckets of water here. I have one that I put my decal in, and I have one that I keep kind of clean so I can rinse out my sponge and whatever I need to. And pull that down. Boy, look at how nice that laid in there like that. Oop. Bent him out. Okay, come back. There we go. See, I always talk to myself. Only one in the studio usually, unless my daughter's keeping me company, which she does pretty regularly, which is fine. And a lot of times it's a lot of fun, including today. So a little bit earlier this morning, I'll show you this. We have some test pots, and I have some old decals from when I was using these florals that I found. These were copyright-free florals, 19th century motif. I think German. And so Amelia put these on one of our test pots. I always mark my test pots with the underglaze pencil. So that one's a 2, just to know he's not for sale. And yeah, so Amelia was helping me in here a little earlier. That was a lot of fun. All right. So that guy. Yep, that decal's just about ready. We'll finish this up. Get that in there. Okay, so just checking it out, looking to see who's here, who's not. Hard to tell what's going on. My little phone, my Android phone, just seems to be pooping out on me. I'm going to need to upgrade, I think. I hear the iPhone is quite the way to go for periscoping, so I might be inclined to get an iPhone here next. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to have to come back. This one's got another, it looks like it wants to bubble up on me a little bit here. There we go. All right, so back to this. I'm going to see, I've got this guy. Just wondering if that's too much. Let's see if we bring it down. Yeah, that's not going to read very clear, I think. I think I'm going to bring this guy back here, grab the other the other decal, the smaller decal, and pull it in about there. Makes it feel like a family, makes it feel cohesive. I like that. That works really good. Now, like I said, we can layer over the top. Oh my goodness. There we go. Just like that. Now that rib tends to want to pull some of that ink off of there, which is why I only use it very sparingly. Okay, so there's a little more detailed information for you guys. I hope that helps. I am going to get back to being able to do this up close and personal, and I hope you all have a great day. Thanks so very much. Have a wonderful day.